So I think we had lots of opportunities that other people didn't have just because it was Carmel and just because it was a small town where everybody knew one another. You know, we had a gas station on Ocean Avenue where Kehrig's store is right now. We had 4 gas stations on one corner on 7th and San Carlos. We had Kip's Market on the corner of San Carlos and Ocean was a gathering spot, and that's where the well-known dog, Pal, whose portrait is out here in the entry to City Hall, lived, and he's the only resident of Carmel buried within Carmel because his grave is up at the Forest Theater. Well, one thing about the gas station on Ocean Avenue stood out by itself because that was, you also drove in from San Carlos, and all the work that needed to be done, maintenance was done in the back. And I can't remember the man's the mechanic's name, but you drove in on San Carlos and you drove out of the back where Bittner's pens are now. And that was you drove out, and then the pumps were all right along Ocean Avenue, the sidewalk there where you drove in. But the key thing is, the most important thing is that the automobile mechanic's wife made the best enchiladas that anyone ever had, and they were sold at Kip's Market. And people just, when she died, she had refused to leave her recipe with her daughter. So the enchiladas died with her, Mrs. Holmes. And but people would just line up to buy a whole, casseroles of them and freeze them or what have you, or use them for parties. But they were wonderful. Jumping way ahead, we had diagonal parking. We didn't have parallel parking. We didn't have 2 lanes of cars. My mother went into business in 1947 with a small shop on Dolores Street because it was hard getting gas and hard driving to San Francisco to find clothes for my sister and myself. So this was the way that she figured she could not have any problem with dressing us. And it was a huge success, and she moved up to where Coach is now on San Carlos, and people said that Mother would lose her shirt because no one was going to cross over east of San Carlos and to shop, she was just east of it, and obviously that was proved not the case because that was before the Carmel Plaza was built. Mother and Dorothy Neal became such good friends when Dorothy opened the Village Hardware, which was the neatest store. Mother helped her out, and that was in the early 40s, and it was the time when you dressed in heels and hose and dresses, and even if you were working in a hardware store. And Mother they had a big oak checkout counter with an NCR register on it. And one day Mother was standing there, and Greer Garson walked in with her then husband, and he walked up to my mother, who was very petite and non-athletic, and said to Mother, "Hi, honey." And Mother drew herself up to her full 5'1" and said, "Just who do you think you're calling honey?" And he said, "You're small enough to be called honey." And with that, he put his hands on her waist and lifted her up and set her down on the checkout counter. So there was Mother in her heels and so forth, standing up on this counter, having no idea how to get down, but she did get down, but she never forgot that.
Did you ever help in your mother's store at all?
Yes, I did, and Sarah, my sister, worked in the Village Hardware, so she'll have to tell you about her days in the hardware store. And if you asked her about my working in Mother's store, she'll tell you that I didn't work in Mother's store, but that's a sisterly competition, I guess. Yes, I did, and when I was out of college and working briefly in San Francisco, I worked for the Crown Zellerbach Corporation, and specifically for the chairman of the board of Crown Zellerbach. And I learned a lot about business, so I was able to recycle a lot of that information back to my parents in the store, and still played a role even though I was out of college and in another vein.